from NPR News, this is All Things Considered. I'm Melissa Block.
And I'm David Green. Ernest Withers was a photojournalist on the front line of the civil rights movement. Withers, who died in 2007, was an insider with access to Martin Luther King Jr. and other leaders. But now we learned that he was more than a man behind a camera. He was also an FBI informant.
That information was revealed over the weekend in an investigation by the Memphis newspaper The Commercial Appeal. The paper found that Withers passed on tips and photographs to the FBI and likely got paid for it. For some context on this story, we turned to Earl Caldwell. He was a national correspondent for the New York Times who covered the civil rights movement alongside Ernest Withers. I asked him how he responded when he first heard the news.
Well, I was in stunned disbelief. I've known Ernie since either a day before or a day after the assassination. I met him in the Lorraine Motel, and I've known him through the years. I'm just, it makes no sense to me.
It makes no sense.
No, it does not. I mean, they say it was some small amount of money, but for the black journalist, this has been the core issue. And that's true for almost a half century. Indeed, in 1970, I have a copy of it here. In February of 1970, we took full-page ads in black newspapers, and the headline says, a message to the black community from black journalists. We will not be used as spies, informants, or undercover agents by anybody. We will protect our confidential sources using every means of our disposal. We strongly object to attempts by law enforcement agencies to exploit our blackness.
How much pressure was there at the time, at the height of the civil rights movement, from the FBI and others to inform on what was going on?
Well, it's an ongoing thing. It is always there. That's why we make that pledge to the black community, because I'm not saying it was only the journalists. I'm sure there were many other people doing other lines of work that the pressure was also there. But the journalists, we were part of this story. And the thing that we had, the thing that made set us apart was we had access. We had access to one of the things when people talk about Ernest, I say that he had access. He was everywhere. And it was the same for me. When the Panthers, I had the access. That's what set us apart. And that's what the government was determined to mess with.
And when you say Ernest Withers had access, why don't you explain just what kind of access that was? Where was he?
What it means is that he could go in those rooms where other reporters, other photographers could not go. He could go into a private meeting. While that meeting was going on, he could snap pictures. He had that trust that allowed him to step into places where others could not go. And now, when they say he was informing, I mean, maybe he had it in his mind that he wasn't really informing, that he was just gaming them, giving them stuff that didn't amount to anything. We don't know because he's not here to explain.
Right.
But we we need an explanation.
Do you think, Mr. Caldwell, that this really taints the legacy of Ernest Withers in a profound way, or do the photos stand as they did as emblems of a time and iconic images of what was going on and his position in the movement?
Well, I think there's the two things. His work speaks for itself. But if all that we've been told through these documents have been released, if that's true, then it puts a very, very, very heavy mark, not just on him and his work, but on the trust that the black journalists made many years ago with the black communities, where they gave us access. They let us go when they were saying white reporters out. The black reporter had total access, and we tried to live up to that trust. And what they're telling us now is that Ernest Withers didn't do that.
Well, Mr. Caldwell, thank you very much for talking with us.
Thank you.
That's Earl Caldwell, a former New York Times reporter who covered the civil rights movement, along with photojournalist Ernest Withers. Caldwell's now a professor of journalism at Hampton University.
He said that Ernest had been an informant, had been part of this. He said that Any time that anybody of any importance in the movement came to town, Ernest was there. He would get pictures. He would give them oral intelligence about what they were doing. He referred to him as a good informant. He was very reliable, very affable guy, is what he said, a real nice guy. And he had this source symbol number. He was ME338R.
ME338-R. ME means Memphis, the first two letters of Memphis. 338 would be his particular specific number for him alone, which to me would indicate there were 337 prior informants to him. The -R means racial.
352, number I want folks to think about as we proceed. Context of white supremacy. Gus T. Renegade in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the global system of white supremacy. Information for non-white people, victims of white supremacy. As Mr. Withers' Life and Times shows, white people, racists, have more than enough resources to learn about what racism, white supremacy is, and how it works. Today's date, Wednesday, July 15, 2026. So I have been told. We'll be here every day through Saturday, even this broadcast related to our brand new book for the Catherine Massey Book Club on Fridays, The Memoirs of Robert and Mabel Williams. We just read our debut session last Friday, right at the bit. We only got to chapter 2, so didn't get very far. If you missed it, I would say very much related, same time period, same espionage and all that. So if you like a good historical read, black self-respect, armed black resistance, and again, some good old government spying, The Memoirs of Robert and Mabel Williams this Friday. That said, the audio segment that you heard at the top about Ernest Withers, victim of white supremacy, black male photographer in Memphis, Tennessee, volunteer state, who is on record having snitched for the FBI for many, many years and giving them not just pictures but all kinds of detailed information about non-white people and their efforts to replace white supremacy with justice. We were told about Mr. Withers from Dr. Kenneth O'Reilly. He visited with us just this past spring. Well, actually, he's visited with us 4 times. And I guess context, before we get to our guest for today, context for this broadcast, the FBI says that yours truly, Gus T., is a subject matter expert on this here topic, COINTELPRO, mostly because of our work for the past 17 years hosting this here broadcast, having people like Dick Gregory, 2-time guest on the Cows, Charles Cobb, author of That Nonviolent Stuff Will Get You Killed, guest on the Cows, Dr. Kenneth O'Reilly, author of Racial Matters, the FBI's secret file on Black America from 1960 to 1972, 4-time guest on the Cows, Jeffrey Haas, who's an attorney in the case for the murder of Fred Hampton, Mark Clark, victims of COINTELPRO, Chicago Police Department. Another example, Chicago, keep that in mind, but another illustration of how FBI, local police departments work together, total system, work together to neutralize black people, attempted counter-racist. But Jeffrey Haas, he was a guest with us. John Potash, his book, The FBI's War Against Tupac Shakur and Black Leaders. In fact, if you look at some of the later editions of that book, the Cows got a shout-out. Mr. Potash, a repeat guest on the Cows from this year. Dr. Joshua Clark Davis, his book, The Police Against the Movement, such an important book. That's a newer book too, where he talks about, yes, COINTELPRO, J. Edgar Hoover, very important, but local police departments like in Memphis and in Chicago and New York City and LA and just on and on and on. They had their own red squads, their own informants, their own spies. Many times they worked in conjunction with the FBI, their own files and all of that good stuff, and that has been regularly ignored and or minimized while the focus goes to J. Edgar Hoover. That would certainly be important in terms of the local, what they call it, the Inspectional Bureau with the Memphis Police Department. Extremely important for what we're going to discuss today, and the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the sanitation strike in Memphis at that time that pulled Dr. King's time, energy, and efforts to Memphis, Tennessee. All of that very important. But yes, we've had many programs talking about COINTELPRO and various levels of surveillance against black people all the way back to the very beginning of our history at the cows. Important. And even we had Dr. O'Reilly back with us this year in the springtime because Gus T made those FOIA requests, got Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, Chicago native, got her FBI papers and then her specific file. That was why we had Dr. O'Reilly back, and he mentioned Ernest Withers in that context about the snooping on black, perpetual snooping on black people. Since I mentioned Dr. O'Reilly, his line from his first visit in 2009, he said black people are treated like trash sanitation workers in Memphis. He said black people are treated like garbage, so their loyalties are suspect. We got to keep tabs on them. We being white people, we got to keep tabs on them. He said that's the thinking like forever in a system of white supremacy racism. That's the origins of the Bureau of Investigation that became the FBI. That's these red squads, the police departments, facial recognition technology, if you want to fast forward to today. But context for our discussion. That said, when Dr. O'Reilly mentioned Ernest Withers, said, hey, we will do some digging and maybe we can have one of the authors who's written about Mr. Withers and his spying in Memphis. We can have them to come chat it up. In addition to writing a book about Mr. Withers, there's also a documentary film on this subject matter, so you can kind of double dip. The book that we're talking about today, Bluff City, B-L-U-F-F, as in lie, trick, got it? Bluff City, The Secret Life of Ernest Withers, and then the PBS documentary on the series Independent Lens. It's, my memory is correct here, season 24, episode 7, The Picture Taker. It's a little bit short of 90 minutes, but lots of it. The late Jesse Jackson Sr. even makes a cameo. Our guest for today is in it, and they do spend the whole time talking about Ernest Withers, his lifetimes, and then spying with the FBI. You see a lot of his family members and lots of the folks that we're going to talk about today who are in the book Bluff City, including the author. Super pleased to have him hanging out with us. Looking forward to getting to his book immediately. Joining us live, our guest, Mr. Preston Lauterbach. Mr. Lauterbach, you with us, sir?
I'm right here. You hear me okay?
Crystal clear, sir. Thank you so much for sharing a bit of your summer Wednesday evening. You could have been watching the FIFA highlights and all that good stuff. Great game and Argentina going to the finals, but he's hanging out with us to discuss COINTELPRO and Bluff City. Anything that you would like to share with our listening audience before we get started, Mr. Lauterbach?
No, I appreciate your setup, and it was great, excuse me, particularly to hear from Earl Caldwell. I had not heard that clip before, but, you know, that gives you the time, place, and professional context that Mr. Withers was working in, because Caldwell was right there at the same time covering the same events. And so, you know, if you talk about it coming straight from the right time and the right place and the right source, that is it.
Right on. Mr. Caldwell seems so hurt. I don't know. I have to think about it. He did seem, yeah, I'll stick with that for a moment. I could probably think of a better one.
No doubt about it.
He seems so hurt.
I think he said he was out. I think he said he was out, or that it was outrageous, something along those lines. But yeah, I mean, and I didn't know about the advertisement that he referred to trying to put the word out that people needed to be careful about this because, that just shows you that there wasn't, one of the things I wondered about in researching Mr. Withers is how much awareness was there about how ruthless J. Edgar Hoover was at that time, because I know all that came out later. How aware were people at that time? And that lets you know right there that the people knew what was up even before the whole Hoover story broke big in the general public.
I would, well, when we say people, I want to be specific. I guess we'll get to some of this in your book, and even I'm going to come back for this program. Normally, sometimes I give a word. For this one, it's a number, 352. I would humbly submit as a subject matter expert, I don't think black people specifically, then or now, have any idea about racism, white supremacy, COINTELPRO, or any aspect of what was going on in terms of, matter of fact, just with the Inspectional Bureau alone, they burned 100 bags of trash. That alone, I know black people have no idea what was in 100 bags of trash. So we'll get to all that as we go. That even that little inkling of an ad in the newspaper, that ain't no 352 in terms of exactly how much snooping is going on here. But any hoodles, Mr. Lauterbach, you are classified as a white man. Is that correct?
That is true.
Okay. For this broadcast, since we are talking about racism direct here, every program we started out, I used the term racism and the term white supremacy as synonyms. The definition I use for both terms: a global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white. Do you think such a system exists? Do you think that definition is accurate?
Well, not entirely, but you would kind of have to run it by me again, and we'd have to break it down a little bit.
Okie dokie. I'll give it to you slow so you can ponder on it and let me know which parts are inaccurate, not true. Here we go again, slow. A global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white. Which parts, anything in there inaccurate?
Well, I don't know that everybody who's white is super dedicated to subjugating everybody who's not white. So I'm not sure. We'd have to define white and not white a little bit more.
I guess being accurate, words are important. I did not say that everybody who's classified as white is dedicated to racism. I said a global system of people who classify themselves as white. That is an important distinction. Even listeners, that's significant. But yeah, that's not what I said, sir. So.
Okay.
So with that clarification, is the definition accurate? Yes, no?
I'm just not 100% sure what we're getting at.
Well, you wrote a whole book about Ernest Withers being a spy.
True.
In a system of racism. That's the sanitation workers. They're talking about racism. I'm a man, Dr. King, all about racism and global, because you talk about Vietnam there. So you wrote this whole book. And let's do it this way. Did you have a definition of racism when you put your book together?
Well, I mean, racism in this case, in the case of Withers and the civil rights movement in America, had to do with, when it comes to segregation, when it comes to inequality. You speak of the sanitation workers, and of course their cause had to do with economic equality, and that was the issue that Dr. King was dedicated to, or was, I think, shifting his dedication to at the time that he became involved with it. And so in terms of, the global racism, I mean, the entire history of the world, yes, revolves around racism. It involves around colonialism. It revolves around the subjugation of non-white peoples. All that stuff I agree with. It was just my misunderstanding of what you were saying, I guess.
Okay. Let's see. I didn't even think I got an answer to that question, because it didn't sound like you had a definition of racism in mind when you put this book together. You talked about what King was addressing and all that. If yes, no, you did not have a concise, this is what I think, or this is what I mean when I say racism. It sounds like you did not have a definition of racism.
Well, it's not that I didn't have a definition of racism. It was like I don't know, man. I'm not sure what we're doing here right now. This conversation is confusing to me.
Oh, that's interesting. That's confusing to me. I'll even retract. That is suspicious to me, because I'm just asking. You've had people ask you what you mean when you use a term before, right? When they don't understand a word, or you write books, so you've had that before, yes?
Well, I mean, I think we all know what racism is. I don't know why we're dwelling on all of this.
Oh, okay. Well, going back to what I said before, black people don't understand racism. We absolutely all, that is absurd. Certainly all of us do not understand what racism is. If non-white people did, we would have solved this problem before. And the other component, we all don't agree about what racism is. And that's another one. I'm looking at you suspiciously like, okay, no problem. We'll just note that for the record, all this about definition for racism in a book like this. Noted. We are and you as a white person.
Well, the definition of racism.
Hang on one second. You interrupted me. I'll let you respond. You as an individual classified as white man.
Yeah.
Is it logical to suspect that you could be a racist in a system of white supremacy? Is that logical to have that suspicion?
Definitely.
Okay, right on. Were you going to add something else now?
Well, the definition of racism, as I understand it, as I operate with it in America, is the system, whether it be the government, the police force, the FBI, white financial institutions, whatever else you want to kind of put under that umbrella, in denying non-white people their legal rights, their access to, equal educational opportunity, equal financial opportunity. And so, we can keep kind of breaking it down from there. But, that's kind of the definition of racism that I work with. And, your point about, suspicion of white people being racist, like all white people, virtually all white people are brought up in the superiorist point of view, I would say, in this country. And, I had a friend of mine tell me that racism was, and he's an African-American guy, he's mentioned in the book. He said that racism is fed to black children in their mother's milk. And I would say that the same is true of white people, because there's a billion layers of information, of deeply psychological stuff that we are either fed directly or are symbolized to us, or there are so many ways in which everybody in this culture breathes racism in. Of course, you have to be suspicious that a white person could be racist, because white people generally are brought up racist. The worst part about it, Gus, is that they don't know it. They often think that they're cool, that they're on the right side, and yet they still don't get it. And so all of us in America, we have to unlearn this stuff. Does that make sense?
No. I guess one, I would go back to my definition. I didn't say America. Global system. You got the FIFA Cup. They've been lots of accusations of racism all throughout the FIFA tournament, and most of those teams are not connected to America, North or South. But the other component, that's what we're going to get to with your book. We're about to pivot right into Bluff City. Even I'm going to pivot to what your wife said at the beginning. But the notion that white people are not aware of this or ignorant, that is one of the greatest lies in the world. I would even point to a book like yours and say, see there, Exhibit A, if anybody is ignorant about racism, it is not white people, it is not Peter Lauterbach, it is black people. What I said, it's Mr. Caldwell. He's the one that shocked us. What? What's going on about it? What? But we'll get to it with the book. Why did you write Bluff City, The Secret Life of Ernest Withers? Did Mark Peruskias, did his spy in Canaan, did he leave something out? Were you trying to fill in a void? Like, why did you write this book?
Well, I've been doing research in Memphis for a number of years, primarily in music, and so I was really interested in, and that's how I was immediately drawn to the photography of Ernest Withers, because he documented, the Beale Street nightlife, all of the great artists like B.B. King and Bobby Blue Bland, Johnny Ace, who got their starts, in those nightclubs, and so learned about Withers that way, through music culture. Became really interested in Beale Street history as the main street of Black America, and so the whole evolution of Beale Street, really beginning as a bastion for freed people after the Civil War and evolving into just a hotbed of business, culture, spirituality, you name it, just everything. And Withers had his office located on Beale Street, I believe, beginning in the 1950s. And so he was in the heart of all the activity that took place, all the historical activity that took place down there when it comes to, music, when it comes to civil rights activity. He was really in the thick of it down there. And so my interest in Withers just grew very naturally out of my interest in Beale Street and the culture.
Was this interest in Mr. Withers' photography and his immersion in the music and all that of Memphis history, was this before it was revealed that he was a snitch for the FBI, or after?
Right. So I became interested in his work prior to that revelation. So I had a chance to meet Mr. Withers, and I think the year was 2004, 2005. He ended up dying in around, I think, 2007. The revelation came out in 2010. And so at that point, I had completed my first book, which is about the Chitlin Circuit, and I had begun a project on the history of Beale Street. And so right when that news broke about Withers, I was really into Beale Street, had been familiar with his work, had encountered him on, met him in person once, had encountered him at events a number of times. He's a very, he's a man about town. I mean, he covered ordinary news events right up until the end of his life. And so it was not unusual to see Mr. Withers on hand at whatever might be taking place with his camera. And, he worked right up until the end, kept the studio there on Beale Street right up there until the end of his life. In fact, I think that I think the studio is still now maybe part of the Withers Museum or something like that. So yeah, I was familiar with Withers prior to the revelation, and then of course when the revelation hit, that was unbelievable.
Wow. I believe it is, the photography shop is still a part of the museum and all that, with his children and grandchildren carrying it on.
Yes.
One, for listeners, the music interest, it does remind me of Delectable Negro. We've heard this all the way back to Malcolm X talking about white people's interest in going to see black people dance and going to the clubs and all that long part of white culture, white racism, white supremacy. I would call it slumming. The other component, for folks who do not know, maybe they are not Ernest Withers historians, Mark Paraskia's book, The Spy in Canaan, came out first, and he filed lots of FOIA, broke the information. Wow, this guy was a spy for the FBI. I had to sue the FBI to get this information, and wrote his book. So, as I said, were there gaps? Were you looking to fill in spaces that he missed in his book?
No, because I didn't write my book based in any kind of way on Marx. I don't recall the exact timing. I don't think I got to look at his book before mine went into production. So in other words, I didn't even read so I had read all of the articles that Mark had published and got a hold of the files, the FBI files that Mark had won in his legal battle with the FBI. So, but in terms of like a book versus book thing, it didn't quite work out like that. I think his came out maybe a year before mine, maybe a year and a half. But in other words, like in the timing of publishing where everything takes forever, I was already done with my manuscript when his book came out, or close to it, to where it was not it wasn't like I needed to fill in any gaps on his. So I'm not even really sure what the overlap and what the differences between our works really are.
I see. And did you have like a target audience in mind for Bluff City? Like when you wrote this, was this a book that's for students or scholar historians, or is this for lay people? Is this just going to be for folks in the Memphis area? Who did you have in mind was going to be sitting down to read Bluff City?
The ideal target audience when you're writing a book is the lay crowd. But so when I'm sitting here writing, I'm thinking, okay, I want this to be interesting to we look at ourselves, Gus, we have to compete with other forms of leisure, more or less. So, people have to choose to pick up my book and spend their time reading it. And so, yes, my target audience would be a lay person. That's who I'm trying to tell the story to as I'm writing.
Fascinating. Okay. Wide appeal. Do you have, and I think important for context, do you have an idea of how many snitches, informants, whatever terminology we're going to use, the FBI specifically, how many they were using with regards to keeping an eye on black people specifically in the Memphis, Tennessee region during this time period, talking about late 1960s, early 1970s? Do you have an idea of how many informants the FBI was using in the Memphis area during this time, besides Mr. Withers?
Right. I couldn't say a specific number, but I could speak to the fact that the FBI was in contact with a number of African-American leaders, people who were involved with the NAACP, certainly folks who were involved the community on the move for equality. And the thing that's tricky about it is that the FBI will assign you're familiar with, FBI files from your
yes, sir.
FOIA activities, right? So the FBI will assign somebody a number, and you don't always know just by looking at a file and seeing that somebody has a file number assigned to them. You don't necessarily know what that relationship is. They could be busting down somebody's door and forcing them to talk. Well, that's not necessarily implied in that number. So, but the FBI did have a wide, I would say, range of people informing them about all kinds of activities in the civil rights world. And so any kind of community, neighborhood, organizational meetings that were taking place during that time, the FBI had somebody who knew what was going on, or who thought they did, and would relay information about who was participating, what the aims of this organization were, whatever organization might be. They were spying on the Nation of Islam, they were spying on the invaders, they were spying on the NAACP, they were spying on everybody. And so, yes, they operated I would say, a pretty wide network of snitches during that time in Memphis.
That's fascinating. You were in the documentary film The Picture Taker, Independent Lens release. Gabe talked, about Mr. Withers in that film, all about Mr. Withers. His family, grandchildren, daughter are all in it. They flash one of those FBI documents on the screen in that film, and they have Mr. Withers, his official FBI code, which was ME for Memphis, 338R. That was his official FBI code. But they give out other codes that they got when they were doing the House Select Committee on Assassinations, late 1970s. They also had the code for ME339R and ME352R. Now, earlier in the documentary, they explained for us ignorant folks who, have never got these files that white people hide and you have to go to court to sue and get all that stuff, that the ME is for Memphis. The number 338 is for the number of snitches that they had. And so they have a white historian in the film explain that they had 337 informants before Mr. Withers. And I said, so we got ME352R. That means that they had at least 352 informants. Now, the important part now, ME, this is not how many informants did they have in the U.S. This is not how many informants did they have in Tennessee. This is how many informants did they have in Memphis. Now, for context, I said Chicago. That gets mentioned in the text. Ernest Withers covered Emmett Till, Chicago through and through. Emmett Till trial, Emmett Till murder trial. In Chicago, I said Fred Hampton, victim of COINTELPRO, victim of white supremacy, and Mark Clark, the informant that we know of who was watching William O'Neill. I said, what's his FBI code? CG for Chicago, 6,800. I'm going to stop right there. You all can check me. You lying. Okay. Black Panther Party. Richard Aoki, A-O-K-I, Asian male, got all this got rainbow solidarity. Then they did the same thing. They found out way late. Oh, yikes. He was a snitch for the FBI. He was giving the Panthers guns and all this. What's Richard Aoki's San Francisco code? SF San Francisco 2000. I'm going to stop right there. So Memphis is not even a major civil rights hub. I don't hear people talk every day about Dr. King was in Memphis in 1950 and 1960 and Malcolm X came to Memphis all these times. No, not until the sanitation strike. Even still, over 350 informants just in Memphis. I say all that's important for 352. One, when we talk about Memphis and who's more informed about racism, Ernest Withers is literally a drop in the bucket. There are 351 at least other informants we don't even know about. The other component where you talked about the coercion, it's a system of white supremacy. The coercion is implied, whether it's you got a police record, you're poor, we're racist, hey, you're going to snitch or else. The coercion is implied. They got lots of ways. Or, hey, we got a wad full of cash. I mean, you can make some money. Or we tell, hey, these guys are communists. They're gangsters. Like, whatever. We can, lots of ways that we can get you to do this. Maybe you make some money about it. Maybe you don't go to prison. Lots of ways. But in my view, the coercion is implied because we're in a system of white supremacy racism. Am I being logical?
Yes, that makes perfect sense.
Okay. And I would even, did you watch the documentary, The Picture Taker, that you were in? Did you watch it?
I did, yeah.
Okay. Do you remember that part where they explain what these codes mean?
No, I guess not. I guess I did not quite clock that one.
Okay. I thought that was maybe one of the most important parts of the film, which I didn't think was very good. That massively important, just for context. It wasn't just even what I said about, now who do I think is ignorant about all this? I don't think black people grasp, like, wait a minute. They had 352 at least Ernest Withers. I I don't think they grasped that then or now. I think even most black people that you talk to right now, no, they would not get that. Even in Memphis, like, what? And they put that document up. They redacted the names for the ME352R, redacted. ME339R, redacted. So, who's ignorant about racism? Any hoodles. Not to bog down in all this, getting back to, not bogging down in anything, get right to the wife. You quoted her very early in the book to provide context for Memphis. This is in chapter 1. You say Memphis felt like an ancient Egyptian city of the dead, fallen with its grandeur apparent in ruin, the pharaohs and their streets buried, how it all fit together, the king of rock and roll to Martin Luther King Jr., I didn't know. Memphis people didn't answer straight. My wife, a native, told me everyone's lived in intimate oppression too long. The dynamic, she explained, is that African American people need to survive, thus the coercion to snitch, and whites need to feel like, I'll read that again. The dynamic, she explained, is that African American people need to survive and whites need to not feel like complete dicks about racism.
Right.
Wow, what in the world? What did your wife mean? Particularly, I got the black people trying to survive. I got that part, sanitation workers. What did she mean with regards to white people?
Well, white people don't want to feel responsible. Like I said earlier, I mean, we are taught, we are imbibed on racism in our education. And, you know, one of the things I can tell you I was taught growing up in California was that the civil rights movement was over and that it basically worked. And so we're letting white people off the hook. And I think that's what she's referring to there. But, you know, we'd have to get her on for absolute clarification.
Well, you did put it in the book, so I'm holding you responsible for it because, hey, you had to understand it enough to quote her to put it in the book.
That's what I said. That was I just gave you my interpretation of why I put it in there, and that is that I think that white people in particular are shirking their responsibility when it comes to the history of racism and its present manifestations.
Now that is interesting, because when I process racism, and even when I just study people classified as white, even in this context with Memphis, I go back to the documentary The Picture Taker, I just don't see evidence that there were white people who felt bad, guilty, remorseful about any of this. They had William Lawrence, who was the white FBI agent who was in charge of Ernest Withers and presumably 351 other informants in the Memphis area, but he was running all of this locally. His daughter came on. She didn't say, oh, man, we feel so terrible about this, and this is just the worst. Nobody said that. In fact, everybody unanimously said, oh, hey, we had to do this. We had them looters and thugs, and we were trying to stop militants, man. We had to do this. You know, King is around. Not one white person expressed any remorse, guilt. Oh, shucks. Not one. Everybody, even when they had decades to think about this, even when it turned to a new century, everyone said this was needed. It was tough times. We had to do this. Do you remember finding white people who felt, or talking to white people who felt guilty or bad about asking black people to spy in Memphis?
Well, I can promise you people don't feel great about the fact that Dr. King was assassinated there. And so I think that when you have a cataclysmic event like that takes place, there's always an emotional toll that comes, and whether people are, you know, honest with themselves about their own complicitness or involvement in that thing is another matter. But, you know, from a law enforcement perspective, of course, I mean, everybody's going to justify their actions and cover their backside. But in terms of like rank and file regular citizens, yes, there is a tremendous amount of I think very genuine emotional sorrow about what has happened there.
Mr. Lauterbach was just being slick there, and he might have been practicing racism, because I did not ask about how white people felt about the assassination of Dr. King. I asked about how white people, did you see any evidence of white people feeling remorse about asking black people to spy in Memphis? Now, I'm going to come back to that one because you didn't answer that question. He didn't even say that the white people there felt bad about Dr. King being assassinated. He said, allegedly, that there are a significant number of white people in the Tennessee region who feel bad that Dr. King was assassinated there. I appreciate the precision. You could be a staunch white supremacist, and I didn't want that nigger killed here. They should have done that, wherever, get him in Atlanta. He lives there, do all that stuff down and cheer about it. The record, there are I was going to talk about the white people who cheered about him being killed. There was lots of that, but I'm going to pull forward. Now, they may talk in glee about having a Dr. King federal holiday now. That was not the case for many years. It continued where many prominent white people, Mr. McCain and everyone, came in. We don't want no King holiday. He's a commie, which is the exact justification that they used for getting Ernest Withers, 351 others, to spy. So I think is very questionable, that because you didn't say white people in Memphis felt bad about Dr. King being assassinated. It was that they felt bad about him being killed there, which is very different. Agreed?
Well, it is different, but I think that the regret would have been the same regardless of where it took place. I think the fact that it happened in Memphis, it hit Memphis people extra hard. But yeah, I mean, I said what I said. I'm not backing down from that. But I still think that the sadness was genuine regardless of where that event took place.
The question, do you see any evidence? Did you find any evidence in your research that white people in Memphis, Tennessee, felt bad about asking all these black people to spy on other black people during counter-racist efforts, 60s, 70s?
Well, I think among the general public, yes, there is. I mean, look, people aren't in favor of this sort of thing happening. The law enforcement people always going to explain and justify why they did what they did and be cold and clinical about it. But, when it comes to the general public, I do think that I never had interviews with people about this specific topic. You know what I mean? But I think that the feeling around it is, of course, like, I don't think anybody wanted any of this type stuff to be going down, and they do feel badly about it. But no, I did not interview a lot of people about that specific question and about that specific issue.
Oh, okay. I think that's incorrect. That might be second willful act of racism on the part of Mr. Lauterbach. If you didn't ask people to get their response, I think just as a journalist and have some integrity, then you can't really speak because you don't know. I did hear William Lawrence, his daughter, she's in the same documentary that you are. She didn't say anything close to that. She said this was justified. Commies, looters, militants. Oh, yeah, we got to keep tabs. I heard that repeat. In fact, as I read your whole book, I did not hear, and I've not heard, one white person express any remorse about this. And in fact, I've seen what Mr. Pereskia, he had to file a lawsuit to get these records. The fact that white people they burned 100 bags of trash at the Memphis Police Department, as opposed to, we're sorry, we'll fess up, this is what we did. It's disgraceful, I know we feel really bad about it. They went and burned all this. Hey, don't even want to bring this to light of day to expose what we did. That right there also strikes me as there is no remorse. This was justified. And I do think that's, man, if you didn't ask people about that, then you really can't comment to what they would think, much less to take such an extreme view that's not supported by evidence. In the text, you write that and this is talking about Mr. Withers, how are intelligence agents supposed to explain such activities to the normal world? How would Americans' ideals and innocence survive the knowledge of every election fix, propaganda campaign, political smear, coup, and assassination undertaken to protect us? This is in chapter 2. When you say protect us, who is the us you're referring to?
Well, my thought there was about American citizens, and that's from the point of view of what the intelligence community thinks that it's doing. That's the intelligence community justification for undertaking all these actions, that they are protecting democracy and they're protecting American citizens. But there is cynicism in there, so I hope you don't think that I mean that in a literal and sincere way.
I didn't get the cynicism. I did not. I thought you did mean it in a sincere man, because there's nothing really that challenges that. Even the use of us, it's not, if people sometimes they would put it in quotes, to kind of put some question there or make people think, and that's not done in the text. Like, I did take it very literally. Even I thought in the context of this book, it's these folks are subverting so-called democracy, and during the same time period where you have people like the great John Lewis who are saying the federal government is not protecting us. They're sitting around and watching us get brutalized and doing nothing about it, like they're doing everything but protect us. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's what John Lewis said is absolutely true. But the other side of the coin is just what I've said. These people think that they are undertaking all of these activities, or they justify undertaking all these underhanded activities as a protection for American citizens.
It's white people. That is not true. And I think everything about their thinking would be, we are protecting white people and protecting the system of white supremacy and racism, the black. Right. And nothing that you said conveys your immediate agreement. That's why I said when I read this, nothing conveyed that you would have immediate agreement with me that they're about protecting white people, because it's not said. It's us, as though black people, non-white people, they're protecting all of us, and that is clearly not true. They're protecting the system of white supremacy, white people, and that's the way it should be said, not us. I mean, unless we are to understand that the word us means white people.
Okay.
Does it? Does the word us, U.S., does that mean white people?
Not always.
Okay. That's why I took it literally here. The section also very early in the book where you talk about kind of your views on Mr. Withers, you write, I knew just as clearly as I could see the twinkle in my grandfather's eyes that Withers' intelligence work wasn't necessarily evil, and that there was a hell of a lot more to the story. Most folks didn't seem to read past the headline. Many said they simply couldn't understand why a civil rights hero would partner with the FBI. How did you get this sense that his intelligence work wasn't necessarily evil?
Looking at the reports and the way that he reported and what he reported on, he had his own agenda. And that was, I believe, this is my opinion, that he was a Dr. King style civil rights adherent. And his objection was with the militant movement. And that is where he really became activated as an almost daily informant for the FBI. And so again, I think in his mind, he's not doing this as a betrayal of the race. I think he's doing that as I mean, look, it's a very complex situation. It's a tough position that he was in, but I believe he at least felt that he was supporting Dr. King's more professional, nonviolent style of civil rights protest by keeping tabs on militant groups.
I'm going to get to that word militant. As I understand it, Mr. Withers, he wasn't just snitching on the invaders. He was also snitching on Dr. King, and not just snitching on Dr. King. According to the documentary that you were in, that again I say is not very good, they said Ernest Withers is one of the key informants out of more than 350 who was apparently snitching on Dr. King live time, April 4, 1968, the day he was assassinated in Memphis. Is it your understanding that Mr. Withers was also snitching on Dr. King?
So, yes, of course. I mean, he was reporting on King's activity. But when you say snitching on, we'd have to get more specific about exactly the reports that were coming from Withers and the nature of them. Because that's a little bit of what I was trying to get at when I said I understood that there was more to it than simply the headline. And that is that I think Withers had his own agenda. So he certainly was present at those meetings. He certainly heard King lay out plans and perspectives, and he reported those things to the FBI. But when it comes to, attempting to smear King, attempting to do something that was going to harm King, I don't think that he did that.
Wow. Even, we'll have to put it like 50 pins right there for the last part. Like, I think your book directly contradicts that, but that just does not make logical sense. I would even have to say that's at least the third time during this discussion I'd have to say that might be another willful act of racism by Mr. Lauterbach. I don't know how one can logically say Ernest Withers is more in the thinking of Dr. King in terms of how he views the world and civil rights and how people should behave, and that might have even motivated him to snitch on other black people, but he snitched on Dr. King. Like, if this is the person that we should behave like, why am I snitching on? And he reportedly snitched on Dr. King live time the day he was killed. I'm not sure why that's absolved or minimized. This was innocent, and he didn't he had been snitching for, at this point, about a decade. By 1968, I mean, it's, man, it flies in the face of logic. In my view, that would be an act of racism by a white person to even say something like that, because it's so illogical. If he really, these folks, these militant black people, they're looters and they're just going about this the wrong way, well then you certainly aren't going to be snitching on the well-behaved black people who are saying nonviolence and love and all of that. You wouldn't be snitching on them. He snitched on everybody. Let's get to it since you problemize. Do you have a definition for the term snitch?
It's pretty much the way that you use it. That's my understanding.
Do you think that term, someone who receives some sort of compensation for providing information unjustly to authorities, enforcement officers, do you think that label correctly applies to Mr. Withers?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. Word fair for listeners in the Word Guide. You talk, man. You state, this is a little bit further down in the book, you state that branding these individuals as snitches, talking about some of the other folks in the NAACP, in addition to Mr. Withers, who shared information with the FBI enforcement agencies, branding these individuals as snitches is hasty because top NAACP officials talked to Agent William Lawrence. Why does your scholarship, Bluff City, omit the foundational history of Major Joel Spingarn, he's a white man, and his white relatives who utilized their executive leadership positions within the NAACP to structurally link the organization straight to the U.S. Army's Military Intelligence Division?
Well, I didn't know about that.
You've never heard the name Joel Spingarn?
I have heard the name Joel Spingarn, but I didn't know about all that.
Wow. I'll just state for the record now, we've had two consecutive white guests on the program. Earl Swift, he was with us a couple days back. We talked about the debt peonage system in Georgia, System of White Supremacy. Same thing, really. But we talked about all this in Georgia, and he actually does mention Joel Spingarn, but he said the same thing, that he didn't know about his connection to the Military Intelligence Division, which spanned decades. And I mean, you want to talk about Military Intelligence Division. And in fact, they still give out awards in his name for the NAACP. That's what I said about, do I think black people are informed? Absolutely not, because I think most black people, when I've said this, they say the same thing that you do. I had no idea, which I expect from black people. But his FBI and intelligence file is way larger than Ernest Withers. It is massive, and some of it's online. You can go and, I'm talking to listeners, you all can go and download it for free, but he was there for decades. Even someone in that film that I keep saying is so garbage, it's not even honest, the picture taker, someone there says, I think it was a white person, says that there's no way that a white man in a suit and tie like Agent William Lawrence, there's no way that he could have walked into a black organization and spied and snooped and got all that information. Bull crap. Joel Spingarn did so for decades. Very successful. I mean, people still don't even know about it. Do you remember that part from, did you say that? Just to make sure it wasn't you. Did you say that in the film?
About what, Spingarn?
That a white man in a suit and tie would not be able to go and spy on the invaders or the Nation of Islam and get all this information?
I don't think so, but I don't remember.
Okay. Well, a white person said it in the film. It was quite suspect, quite incorrect. And either way, he said he didn't know about Joel Spingarn. Homework for all. The framing of, I'll just read it directly from the text, that on page, you write, I can't give out the page numbers because I have the ebook, so I'm always resistant to give out page numbers because they won't conform to people who have the physical copy of the book. So for me, it's 96, but wherever for folks who have physical copy. You refer to Ernest Withers as a civil rights hero, direct quote. Under what logical framework can a researcher classify a paid informant, snitch, who took cash? And when we say cash, the picture taker, they say that the adjusted, inflation-adjusted income for Mr. Withers, in today's dollars, it would be about $100,000 is what he made for giving this information to the FBI. Put this in context. So, again, you write, a civil rights hero, how you classify Mr. Withers. Under what logical framework can a researcher classify a paid informant who took cash envelopes from the state to deliver the internal planning maps and license plates of civil rights targets as a hero to the very movement he was spying on?
From my point of view, the heroic aspect of Withers' career took place in the mid to late 50s before he joined up with the FBI. So, you know, one of the stories about Withers was that he was part of the group of journalists who, along with Medgar Evers, were out searching for the witnesses to the Emmett Till murder. And then later in covering the trial, you know, that was a threatening atmosphere and environment that they were a part of. And they had other harrowing stories. I believe Simeon Booker told stories about he and Withers traveling in the Deep South and the risks that they took being journalists down there during that time, and how dangerous and you know, violent the whole situation was. And so I would base his heroism on those activities.
I don't know.
Gus, look, man, I've enjoyed this discussion, sort of, but our hour.
He said sort of.
I'm tired. Take care, buddy.
He said, well, can I get one more question in before you depart? Oh, did you just hang up the phone? That's what I would expect from a race soldier if that happened. Did you just hang up the phone? That's about what I would expect. Oh, my Lord. This dude, that is the height of tacky, trifling, terroristic. That's what does it mean to be classified as white? Oh my goodness. Woo. We were supposed to do this program last month. I wish I'd hit my applaud button. Man, not to applaud to make him leave. That was not the goal. But I did say, oh my Lord, this dude is in so much trouble. I said that we were supposed to do this program last month. I started reading this book and I said, this is trash. This is total trash. Like, matter of fact, I'm going to slow down. He didn't even know what the code was for the Negro he wrote the book about. Now, he could be lying, whatever. I think that's totally legit. I think he's so sloppy and not even interested in doing accurate work practicing racism that he legitimately did not know. Hey, you wrote a whole book about this dude whose code is ME338R. What does that mean? That's a good question. Let me get the chatbot. What does that mean? What? And that's another one. This book been out for some years. Someone should have bust his ass like years ago. What sort of clown is you? What sort of clown is you? Man, I didn't even have no softball questions to go to. Like, man, how about this? It was like, man, I'm going to tell you, it was thrash from the beginning. The book is crap. Do not waste your time. I wouldn't even, the book is crap. It's not even honest. Like, woo, go get The Spy in Canaan. Go get anything but this. It is affirmative action in a system of white supremacy racism that this dude can even exist as an author. Like, anybody with half a brain should have read this. Bust his hind parts. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Woo! I knew he was in trouble from the beginning because, one, I was reading this book early enough. It was like a week before he was supposed to be on the program, originally last month. I had like half finished the book. I think I had like 10 chapters left, highlighted. We could have done the interview then. And he said, oh man, I got a teaspoon of Ebola. You know, can we postpone? No problem. We can do it in July. No problem. I just said then, like, all that means is it's going to be even worse because I'm going to have more time to read and think about all these lies. I had time to watch that. Oh my God. That documentary, The Picture Taker, that right there is why I say, man, all of y'all sit around watching TV and think you're doing some research. That's like two things. That's like two things. That's it. I can only think of like one non-white person really where it's like, dang, pretty much, except for two things, I agree with pretty much everything that they say. Neely Fuller Jr., amazing. You're not supposed to agree. We're not supposed to have, I'm just saying, that is remarkable. What are those two things? Not all. Peter Lauterbach. Not all white people is racist. That's one thing. He did say that. From mother's milk. And you can watch television and learn all you need to know about racism. That is not true. Not even close. That's not what Dr. Welsing says. Dr. Welsing has a lot more education than Mr. Fuller as white people set things up. Black male privilege. But that's one or two things. That's it. That's it. We cannot sit around and watch TV. You would watch a film like this, you would get totally inaccurate information about the system of white supremacy racism, other than them explaining, what does this code mean again? They had 338, or they don't tell you they had 338 when they explain they use his code. So it'd be they had 337 other informants. You have to use that logic. So when they get later on in the film, when you see, oh dang, they had ME352R. And what's the R for? Reds, communists, because that's another big lie he tells in the book, saying, oh, that he even enforces the lie that all the white people say. We got to protect them from communists. The commies might invade, so we got to be doing this snooping and spying and snitching to keep the commies out. What commies? That code ME338R, is that R for Reds? Nope. They put it on the screen. What's that R for? It's ME, Memphis. 338, that's our 338th snitch for the Negroes. How you know it's for the Negroes? What's the R for? Racial. And they make sure your ignorant hind parts is not confused. When we say racial, they put it in parentheses. No lie. I'll take a screenshot. It's in the film. What do we mean when we say racial? In parentheses. Ghetto. Ghetto. Ain't say nothing about no communists. Ain't say nothing about no Reds, the Soviets, the Bolsheviks, Marxists. These are our Ghetto informants. We got to keep tabs on our niggers. We got to keep 352 at least informants spying on our niggers. I knew, in fact, it would have been even worse. Mr. Lauterbach, when I invited him to be a guest on the program, he said, I enjoyed it, sort of. I didn't. Well, I guess I do. I look forward to getting a racist suspect. I look forward to it. I don't look forward to hearing from 0185. I don't ever look forward to hearing from you. I look forward to talking to race soldiers, people classified as white. Especially, I don't look forward to trying correcting other black people when I don't know what I'm talking about. I look forward to checking a race soldier and telling him, you are lying. Lauterbach, you are lying. Even from the very beginning. I don't know about your definition for racism. Man. He even had a minute. We have to talk about what you mean white and non-white. You already said you're a white person. You're telling me you don't know the difference between a white person and a non-white person? Did you like that performance from beginning to end? Like, oh my God. Oh my God. Race soldier. I can't even say extraordinaire. You're just tacky and trifling through and through. Your book is tacky and trifling. Even to him, just leave. Man, forget this. I didn't enjoy it. Sort of. Deuces. And throw the phone. Like, dude, what does it mean to be classified as white? And again, this is almost as bad as Michelle Alexander. You could read 3 chapters of this, and he should have been thrashed. Are you serious? Are you serious? You're just lying, and you wrote a whole book to lie and cape. Ernest Withers ain't no bad dude. And even what he said, I don't think Ernest Withers meant to hurt Dr. King. I said, your book contradicts, you're lying right here. Act of racism right here. In his very book, he talks about Dr. King. For people who don't study racism, Dr. King went to Memphis. Why? The sanitation worker strike, those signs, the lie. I am a man. No way. They go to have the march on the calendar date, March 28th, 1968. What is that? Like a week before Dr. King's assassination, April 4. They have the march in Memphis. It gets rowdy and all of that. In his book, he talks about, oh man, the documents, the history show, even Withers himself testifies, I gave black people those sticks that were used in the riot as justification for saying the Negroes were rioting, looting. They had weapons, those sticks, to fight the officers and break glasses and destroy white-owned property. And oh my goodness, and blame it all on Dr. King. Mr. Withers admits, they got direct quotes, I provided those sticks. And they even literally think we might have the receipts where the FBI gave him the money to get these 2x4s to give them to black people. They didn't have sticks before. They got pictures. This was the first time that they had weapons at the march. Where did they get them from? Mr. Withers. After he's already aware white people are looking for reasons to say that black people are violent, that this is a riot, and we can use this as a pretext to kill black people, which they did. How in the world did, I don't think he meant to hurt. Why is he giving out wooden 2x4s at a nonviolent protest when they've never had these before? Why? Not the, it was for the commies. That's what you're doing, to keep the commies out. In case you see any of them Bolsheviks come around here, them Marxists, Leninists, old Dr. Welsing, before she gets set right, they come around here saying they Marxists. You crack them with that 2x4. What? What? Race soldier extraordinaire. And this is another one. Pointed this out for years. I think frequently because black people, we are ignorant about racism. We're ignorant about what it means to be classified as white. A dude, a suspected racist like Preston Lauterbach, you can even, I think, check the description on X. I didn't have enough characters. They limit you on Meta. But on X, I listed Preston Lauterbach as a racist suspect in advance. I never do that. I did that this time because I knew this is extra tacky. Oh my God. There is not every question that I asked him, all of my questions were going to be exactly like that. All of them. There's nothing constructive I picked out of the book. It was, I think a racist wrote this book to lie, which they do a lot of. I think a racist wrote this book to give some sort of exoneration or at least minimize Ernest Withers. And I come back to what I said before. The big one, 352. That is the content. Really, you can't even really get that caught up in Ernest Withers or William. Man, that's one thing I learned from all of this because I didn't know what William O'Neill's code was, nor did I know the significance, even if someone had told me. CG 6,800, and you can fade from there. Put whatever number you want to put on there. You can put, matter of fact, you can put 6,800, 6,899. Pick anywhere you like. Does it really matter? They got close to 7,000. And again, that's just the FBI informants. The Memphis Police Department, the Chicago Police Department, the LA Police Department, the New York Police Department, they have their own separate informants. How many? We don't know. That's another one. The Memphis Police Department, they had their inspectional bureau. This was specifically to spy on Memphis niggers. Specifically to spy on Memphis niggers by a white police chief who worked for the FBI. System. The Memphis Police Department burned 100 trash bags of files of their snooping on black people in Memphis. 100 trash bags. They talked what they said. My black brother Diddy. They said he had about 1,000 bottles of baby oil. Is that 100 bags of trash? They had to go, whoa, my Lord, Diddy, you got all this lube in here. What you been going on? We gonna get you good. The freak alls we got you, Diddy. Was that 100 bags worth of lube? 100 bags of trash and filing cabinets. Black people are not informed about racism, white supremacy. White people are not ignorant about racism. Even that, white people felt bad. He admit, I ain't really asked nobody, do you feel bad about this? Remorseful? We shouldn't have been spying on them. But I know people feel, and even, you see what he did? I asked him, did they feel bad about the snooping? Paying all these 350 of Ernest Withers and folks to go snooping on they black brothers and sisters, snooping on black garbage collectors who were just trying to get a shower. I'm trying to be sanitary, promote hygiene for everybody in Memphis. We got these uppity militant niggers around here asking for a shower. Don't you think I didn't have that on my list? What do you mean militant? We got to do that every program. White people are going to got these militant niggers around here asking for a shower. What's next? You going to demand a bar of soap? Uppity niggers. Milwaukee, they didn't have no soap in the schools. Just reminder. Anyway. But yeah, you just get, and I said, they are accustomed, Lauterbach, white people in general, they're accustomed to talking to black people who are ignorant, and or we're not going to ask them no questions. I had a whole rack of questions, buddy. I had a whole rack of questions. What you mean, militant? Explain them. He mentioned William Sullivan. This is another one we had before. He mentions William Sullivan and how Ernest Withers is giving photographs directly to William Sullivan. Now, I suspect to most of you all, that name doesn't mean anything. To me, oh my, 4th of July. Whoosh, whoosh, firework. What did it say? We in France. Bastille Day. Whoosh, 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 all kinds of alarms and explosions. You are giving photographs directly to William Sullivan. They bank on ignorance. You say, well, Gusty, who is William Sullivan? William Sullivan was one of the most powerful white people in the world during this time period. He was the third most powerful white man at the FBI. He wrote an autobiography after he retired. It is a matter of record that this lying, racist suspect doesn't even include in the book, and this is a massive lie by omission. That was going to be my question. Did you tell a professional lie by not telling us that Ernest Withers is giving information, photographs, and all directly to William Sullivan, who is the third most powerful man at the FBI and was directly in charge of all sorts of domestic terrorism campaigns? It's on file. William Sullivan is the white man who wrote the letter to Dr. King to encourage him to kill himself before he received the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964. All sorts of other jobs and what have you to so-called neutralize he and many others. I think William Sullivan was probably involved in the assassination of Fred Hampton, Mark Clark in Chicago. He was William Sullivan was so powerful, important. He was scheduled to testify before the House Select Committee on Assassinations about all of this. How was Dr. King killed? Was the FBI involved? All this snooping and snitches and spies and all the rest of it. Days before he testifies, he is shot and killed in a hunting. Oh yes, he's shot and killed in a hunting accident that is immediately. Nolan Wells immediately declared a suicide. Immediately, a hunting accident where he's mistaken for a deer. About to testify, and they say he's a deer. Oh man, my fault. No charges get filed, and no testimony for the House Select Committee on Assassinations. We missed out. And I am told that he had some sort of dispute with J. Edgar Hoover before he retired, left the bureau, what have you, that they weren't exactly on the best terms or what have you. They weren't so friendly when everything wrapped up. Yeah, that's, you can investigate. But all of that notwithstanding, to just casually drop William Sullivan's name in, I think for anybody who's in it, if that had been Dr. Kenneth O'Reilly and you just casually mentioned that Ernest Withers is sending information to William O'Sullivan, like, what? That is information about what? About who? Can we get that file? What did he send? Jesus Christ. That is not I don't think he meant to hurt nobody. And, please. And I cannot emphasize enough, if you have 352 informants just in Memphis, white people are not ignorant about nothing. That environment is set. We know everything about everything. They had no more reports about, hey, we found out who ME350-R, Ghetto. They had no reports about that. They had no books about it. Matter of fact, who was ME1-R? Who was that? No books on that one. We don't know. Who was the last? We don't know. All we got is Ernest Withers. I think they did get the names for some of the other folks from some of these people who apparently were very crucial in keeping live. I can't even emphasize that enough. When they had no social media, I guess, they had no smartphones, the FBI was getting live time updates on what Dr. King was doing all day long on April 4. Why is that? I don't think that's nefarious. What does it mean to be white race soldier suspect? Peter Lauterbach. Exactly what I expected. Anywho, take a quick commercial break. Be back. Make sure we let folks know we'll be broadcasting for the rest of the week and get to it. Context of white supremacy. Let's see. Reading more important than watching television. Reading more important than watching television. Let's see.
Got another term on there, VGQ. What does that mean? Victims Guaranteed Qualification. Now, that keeps you from getting in arguments with other black people, particularly on television, which I get sick of that. Black people shouting. You know, we get into our ghetto thing. Once we get on television and get wound up. And we start all yelling at once. And the racists sit there smugly and just look. They watch the tennis match, so to speak. Right. And black people are shouting each other down, talking about, you don't know what you're talking about, and so and so and so and so, and we go into our Amos and Andy and Sapphire act. Okay? VGQ means Victims Guaranteed Qualification. Guaranteed qualification to do what? To give your opinion on anything about race. Don't care what it is. If you're on there with Minister Farrakhan, or you're on there with Mike Tyson, or you're on there with Miss, what's her name, Williams, the lady that had him put in, recommended that he be put in jail, or you're on there with anybody. So you don't cut the other black person down. Now, I don't even like that term brother and sister, even though it's been around for about 30 years. But I ain't going to talk about the brother here, no. See, we haven't reached that stage where we can do that. See, we got to crawl before we walk, but we don't miss any steps. Don't say you are what you're not. Don't say you feel something that you don't really feel. You don't really feel that he's a brother. I usually use the expression, I don't like anybody in here. I say that to all audiences. I haven't been taught to like anybody. I've been taught to dislike people. Been taught that. And then they're taught to dislike me, so it's just compounded disliking. They haven't even got to love yet. All right? So what we do is minimize conflict, try not to hurt each other. So a certain thing, that's what a code is for. It's a stopgap. It keeps me from saying something against you. You say, well, don't you agree with what this person just said down here on the other end and whatnot? That person has VGQ, Mr. Donahue. I keep using him because he's one of the most prominent TV people. Right. But the main thing you do is try to stay off of a radio program or TV program or even a neighborhood stage program, you might say, where you spend your time shouting back and forth at other black people. Nothing is getting done there. And when it's done on television, a lot of black people just get up from the TV set and go on in the kitchen somewhere. Once that shouting starts. Yeah, they get disgusted. They say, oh, here we go. They started off okay, but now they're doing a job on each other and I don't even want to hear it. So just don't do it. And you cut it off. The cutoff point is that person has Victims Guaranteed Qualification. You spell it out what it means. Meaning the person can say anything about race that they want to, and I can say anything about it that I want to. You are guaranteed that. You earn that as a victim. Simply by being a victim. Now, if a white person says something, that's something else.
Lauterbach say something, that's different. White people say something, that is different. Gus T looking to do a job on people classified as white. I don't brawl with other black people. You don't know what you're talking about. Any hoodles, man. I cannot emphasize enough Dr. Welsing when she says, and she says Dr. Kenneth O'Reilly. I would say you don't necessarily have to read Dr. Kenneth O'Reilly's book, Racial Matters, although that would be a good one to read. But we should be students of COINTELPRO. That's what I mean when I say reading nonfiction more important than watching television. Anybody immediately, no, we need to read fiction. That is a crock of nonsense. They do not write fiction books about COINTELPRO. We do not need to waste time on no entertainment, romance, a story, or it's got some cute stories and made me giggle. Grow up, universal man, universal woman. Let's get to the books where, how many informants did they have? Wow. Now, what's the point of all that? United Independent. Ain't gonna be, Fuller talked about, ain't gonna be no secrets. And they're even better now with all the technology and everything else that they have, facial recognition and everything else. So they got even more tools at their disposal. But I mean, hey, Why break something why fix something if it ain't broken? Chicago, for Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, William O'Neill's code, CG68XX, unknown variable, put in whatever you like, 6,800. We're talking 7,000 just for Chicago. That's not even for all of Illinois. White people are not ignorant about racism. Not at how many spies do black people have studying white people? You got federal groups that got boxes and whole buildings of folders on the niggers that they've studied, foreign and domestically. You got the local police departments. They got whole buildings, boxes, rooms of files on niggers that they've studied, wrongfully arrested and killed probably. You got local civilian groups, the White Sovereignty, Mississippi State Sovereignty Commission and all this. You got local civilian groups, boxes, crates, all this information that they done stacked and piled up on niggers that they done studied and abused and terrorized and got them fired and canceled their loan. What black organizations do you know of at any level? We got boxes and crates on the white people we have studied, racists we have studied. Where is that at? Is that at Howard? Is that at Fisk? Is that at Bethune-Cookman? Spelman? Morehouse? Jackson State, Deion Sanders was browsing all that before he left to go to Colorado. Where is that at? I would like to know. I've never heard of such a reservoir that is black people. This is our information. I'm going to assume we ain't got no white snitches where we pay them and they go and snoop on white people and come back and report. I'm going to assume that we don't have that. White people, even Lauterbach, and this is a lame race soldier who didn't even do his information, informed enough to write a book about racism, white supremacy. I'm not even informed about the agent's code or, the informant's code that I'm writing about. I'm not even informed about that. And that's in the dang documentary that I was in. I could have just paid attention to that and I would have known. Affirmative action operates on many levels for people classified as white. We should be here on Thursday, normal time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, neutralizing workplace racism. We'll chat it up about ways Mr. Lauterbach, others practice racism on the job and the scourge of workplace violence involving black employees. Trend continues, unfortunately. But we'll address all that tomorrow. And then, as I said, we'll continue Robert and Mabel Williams, the memoirs on Friday, picking up on chapter 3. Just had our first session last week. I was so impressed. He was hesitant about the global system. I'm talking about America. Robert F. Williams. It will be very global. Cuba, Vietnam, China, North Carolina, Michigan. Global system of white supremacy will be on display Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. And then we'll have our counter-racist weekly review Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Updates on the Nolan Wells case. And in fact, Daniel Irving with an E, I just saw that today. Hey, not all white people are racist. People were talking about Nolan Wells, the young privileged black male who was partying with his white friends on an island in Jackson County, Mississippi, and died under suspicious circumstances. They said white people and alcohol. White people and alcohol. White people, that's another one you can fade. 6,800 fade out. White people, alcohol, one black person you can fade out. You already know. Oh, man. What kind of catastrophe was this? Nolan Wells, 18, not with us anymore, with his intoxicated white friends. Daniel Irving, I just heard about that case within the last 24 hours, drowns with his white friends under suspicious circumstances. They've just been charged. And friend said that he went under the water and they didn't want to get in trouble, so they panicked and ran and left him. They didn't think, hey, maybe we should call 911. Maybe they could at least get the body out. His, family might want to have funeral services. Nah. And we're going to delete the check. We ain't had no contact. Like, what? Did you kill him? What was it? Man. White friend. This was in Texas. So, Nolan Wells, Mississippi, Jackson County, Daniel Irving, privileged black male, Texas. This just happened, so I guess we'll get more info. They actually made an arrest in this case, so I guess we'll get more details, figure out what happened. But, we were just talking about water safety for the summertime. I don't remember if we included, if you can go to the pool or the beach or what have you, lake, maybe don't go with your white friends, especially if you're going to be the only black person. Cancel. Nah. I can't do no islands. We can't do no remote beaches, like pool at your house. Nah. No. None of the above. Pool safety in the system of white supremacy. You cannot be the only black person, male or female, at the white pool party. Never. And particularly share that with young people. I know it's extreme heat and the weather and all that, and you want to have a good time. And hey. I say this, only two things I'm going to tell you. I have talked with the chatbot before about racism, presented odd theories, and it'll scoff and fight back. All white people are racist. That's crazy. No. I said, oh, okay. One time. Hey, look here, chatbot. The Nolan Wells case. Where are the non-racist white people? Or Lonzo Brooks. We talked about it. We got a bunch of these cases. That was the privileged black male, 2004, was at the party in Lacine, Kansas. Only black boy present and died mysteriously. Everybody, even his white friends. That was another one. White people, alcohol. Already know this is going to be catastrophic, and it was. But I said, hey, Lonzo Brooks, black male, party, dozens of white people, at least 50, some say 100 white people. You got $100,000 reward from the FBI. Where are the non-racist white people? I was told not all white people is racist. Where are they? Chatbot said, ugh. Ain't no non-racist white people on this one. That normally don't happen. They normally give some pushback. That ain't happened with Alonzo Brooks. Look here. That didn't happen with Nolan Wells either. Where are the non-racist white people? You don't want your $100,000? You supposed to snitch. That's a come up. 100K? 100K? Incidentally, 100K, that's the inflation adjusted income for snitch Ernest Withers, who is a victim of white supremacy. But I mean, dang, 100K? 100K? Whew. And white people have a continued investment in his industry of snitching. The museum that Lauterbach mentioned, Ernest Withers, that's still in operation in Memphis, where his grandchildren operated, and they were in that lame documentary making all kinds of excuses. They had the audacity, his daughter, to say he was allegedly an informant, talking about Ernest Withers. What? Do you think J. Edgar Hoover, William Lawrence, the special agent in charge in Memphis, you think they fabricated all of these documents and payroll receipts about Ernest Withers? You think all of this is a lie? For what purpose? Come on, man. We got to be. I understand everybody wants to defend their parents, but I mean, really, you're going to take a documentary that's supposed to be historical, that documentary, and just populate it with their family, a person's family and relatives, to minimize and lie? They even called Ernest Withers Dr. Ernest Withers repeatedly. And they're like, whoa. Francis Cress Welsing is a doctor. Kenneth O'Reilly is a doctor. Tommy J. Curry is a doctor. Ernest Withers is a photographer. Where did we get the doctor from? Like, are you serious? He was allegedly a snitch, but we don't even, well, allegedly doctor with, like, come on, man. Come on, man. So-called doctor. Like, come on, man. What is going on here? But they get all of these grants and such, the museum, to stay in existence, like sizable grants to stay in existence. So there is an ongoing investment in perpetuating this notion. He was a civil rights hero and a legend. They even said he did more to protect black people through his photography than he did snitching. Whom did he protect? Dr. King? You'd have to list names of black people that were protected by what he did, and specifically how he protected them. Then verse, oh, and we don't even know the full scope. Again, a white person had to sue the FBI to get these records. This wasn't no willful, we want to give this up and all. Ernest Withers was dead. So, I mean, this wasn't even, hey, we got to protect our sources. He's dead. What are you talking about? And again, Ernest Withers is 338 out of at least 352 Memphis snitches. Not Tennessee, just Memphis. I was also going to come back. Mr. Lauterbach, he refers to black people on a first name basis in his book, on a regular basis. There's one black male who's in the group, The Invaders. It's a black group in Memphis, so-called militants. John B. Smith, he refers to him as John B. in the text throughout. I'm like, you are not homies with these people. There's no reason for you to be. There's Charles Cabbage, another black male who was in this group. He refers to them on a first name. In fact, he refers to him by a nickname, Cab, C-A-B, Cab. Are you all friends? Is he a relative of yours? Mr. Cabbage, he's been deceased now for over 15 years. How are you referring to him on a first name basis? You don't refer to, it's not J. Edgar in the text. Like, why are you referring to him on a first name basis? The white FBI agent in Memphis, his name is William Lawrence. You're not, Slick Willie. You're not calling him by no name. It's Lawrence. Why isn't it Cabbage throughout the book? That's his last name. Be professional. Nah, Cab. John B. Like, man, get out of here. And I've seen that pattern with a number of white authors where they just get real casual and loose in the way that they talk about black people. He devotes time to giving all these lewd stories about black people, especially black people in The Invaders, doing drugs and alcohol and all this old nonsense. Again, he doesn't make time to tell you about William Sullivan and his coordinated terror, trying to get Dr. King to kill himself. That's less important than telling you about these old syrup head black people, because they take the cough syrup, Robitussin. They sit around and do that and give their views on racism. I give you some old funny stories about the nigger. In fact, what he started with, he said he'd gotten all this. He had been looking at Ernest Withers' photos about B.B. King, Cab Calloway, all these black musicians, which Memphis is known for, right? Not just Elvis, but they had long history of that, blues and sounds from black people. But I said, that is a whole history of white supremacy racism in slumming. That's not replacing white supremacy with justice. That's just, I love a little Negro tune. That's all the way back to the plantation. Fiddler. I love a little Negro soul, little Negro. Show me them fancy footsteps. Oh, I love that's the minstrel shows and all of that. Sometimes we get an authentic black person to come up and cut a little rug with us. Any hoodles. Anything? I'll look at my notes right quick. See anything else? I was going to make sure to get out before we move. That one, he has that in the book for people who maybe are not familiar with the whole sanitation worker strike and the circumstances that led to Dr. King's death. I forgot we had William Pepper as a guest on the program too. He was attorney for the King family, where they had the trial in the late 90s, where they concluded that there was a conspiracy and government involvement in the assassination of Dr. King in Memphis. Lots of books about this subject matter. But the sticks, that is so important. They have flagrant pictures that show those signs that the black sanitation workers were carrying that said, I am a man. they were on strings and they were wearing them before. You can't be violent basically with a large piece of paper, a poster. You can't whack anybody with that. You can't break a window. You can't smack a police officer with that. You can't do anything with it but show that it says, I am a man. Withers is the one who switched that. Now you can't wear these. Now you're going to have a sign that's on a stick that you can immediately just snatch the sign off and get to clubbing and whacking and bludgeoning or breaking windows or whatever you like. That is directly Withers, who admits, I did this. Massive. And there's other circumstances about that march, which, in my view, clearly the evidence shows this was entirely fabricated. White people wanted violence, that white people encouraged, wanted, and even set up the circumstances for the violence to take place so that they could, one, blame Dr. King for this and say, oh, this no-count irresponsible Negro, he goes around causing all this trouble, and he's the one that's violent, and he's the one that's irresponsible, and he's not even going to take charge and make his Negroes behave when they get out there, so they could do that. And the Poor People's Campaign is in the middle of this too. White people did not want that to go down, so they're trying to sabotage or neutralize all of this. And even the evidence suggests with this violence at the march, it ties King to Memphis, because he says, I got to come back to Memphis. We got to do another march. We can't have it end with just it being violent and then blaming me. We got to do another one. That's how he ends up being back there for April 4. Ernest Withers spying on him all day long. They even talk about the coordination in terms of the FBI getting his room moved to a completely different hotel. And then once he's at the Lorraine Motel, he gets moved from a room where he would not have been visible to any sniper who's across the way or in the bushes or in the hotel room where James Earl Ray is alleged to have been. He wouldn't have been visible, probably could not have been shot. They get his room moved to another location. That's another one. Who did this? Why did it happen? But there's lots of evidence that even the black enforcement officials who were part of the security detail for Dr. King, they're in that documentary. They testified, we were removed. And I read that. That's in William Pepper's book. Black security detail removed. Just before Dr. King was killed, same thing happened with Minister Malcolm X. Normal black security officers removed just before he gets assassinated, and then bang. Lots of evidence to suggest that this was a well-orchestrated event, just like the assassination of Patrice Lumumba in the Congo, really. Just like the assassination of Malcolm X. Run down, just like the assassination of Medgar Evers. Lots of these, well-coordinated, well-orchestrated by powerful white people. And they had a trial, 1990s. William Pepper, he has multiple books about all of this. Well, even Dick Gregory, I mentioned Murder in Memphis. Book about this as well. Many people, many lucid historians, scholars, studying material came to the same conclusion. Individuals like Lauterbach, white people invest so much time and energy lying, and particularly give the impression that there are individuals classified as white who are against racism, white supremacy. Last thing I get in, even him having that line from his white wife at the beginning of the book saying that white people don't want to feel like so-called dicks for racism, where he said they don't want to feel responsible. Again, I've seen no evidence that white people feel bad about racism. Now, it might be white people want to lie so that they don't seem like they're practicing racism, because that's a big part of how the system operates. Hey, not all white people is racist. That's a big part of how this operates, but I just have not seen any evidence at all, that white people feel sincerely bad, pained, guilty about the practice of white supremacy racism. That's just, he said he didn't even ask. It didn't even that, I think, is revealing to me. It didn't even enter his brain computer when putting this book together and talking to white people. Is there some regret about this? Sowing all of this discord and distrust amongst black people? Black garbage collectors who are trying to get a shower and correct wages. Don't we feel bad about sabotaging all this? It didn't even enter his brain computer to ask such a question, because they don't feel guilty. Anyhoodles, that's it. We will do it up tomorrow. Put in for your request. I cannot say enough. I think if we really sat down and studied some of this information, we would be stunned just at the scope. 6,800 spies just in Chicago. Dr. Welsing, Lauren Questlove, Mary, Jesse Jackson. I think we would be stunned. We should be studying COINTEL. All of the serious attempted counter-racists, we should be studying COINTELPRO, get books on the subject matter, listen to the COWS programs on the subject matter, look for new books on the subject matter. The films should be at the bottom, even though there are not tons of films on COINTELPRO, but they should be at the bottom. You really want to get in and do some digging and file those FOIA requests. You can start getting some of the documents so you can see yourself what types of things were they doing. How much of this was going on? How many pages and such? Get some of the records on the people that they were spying on, like Dr. Frances Cress Welsing when she was 19. Surrounded by about 7,000 snitches in Chicago. We'll be here mañana, Thursday, neutralizing workplace racism, do it up again. Staying safe on the sanitation workers, man. We would have been talking about the sanitation workers the entire time. If the cows had been on the air, even before Dr. King got there, we've been on our job, paying attention to the news. We'd have been talking about the sanitation workers. Black people can't get a shower and having to go and beg white people, can we please get a shower so we do not have to go home smelling like rubbish. I don't know, Leroy. That's kind of uppity. We don't give you no soap. They had showers for the white workers, but I don't know. We won't give out no showers for niggers. Neutralizing workplace racism. 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific tomorrow. And again, hey, same time. And 2 other people who were snitched on. That's just down the road in North Carolina. And Rob Williams was mentioned in the book. I totally forgot about that. We talked about them as these are the type of, oh yeah, we got to snitch on them. These folks, they up to no good. And out here we got these old militants. Can't even behave themselves. See? Here it is. Yeah, it's chapter 12 where he says, here you go. Here we go. James Foreman appeared in Memphis in the late summer of 1961. Ernest Withers chatted with him, figured out where he was staying locally, and paid attention to him. James Foreman didn't strike Withers as communist material, but he snitched on him anyway. But Foreman, he learned, had recently associated with a dangerous person in Monroe, North Carolina. That's the sort of thing I was going to question. He doesn't even put it in quotes. Dangerous. These are his words, Peter Lauterbach. A dangerous person in Monroe, North Carolina. Monroe's NAACP leader, Robert F. Williams, had allegedly visited Fidel Castro in Cuba, we will get to that, and advocated violence to desegregate the South. What would Williams' next move be? Withers pressed Foreman, who replied that he planned to head right back to North Carolina to take part in a protest with Williams. Withers asked about details, but Foreman evaded. Withers asked too many questions. Withers let it go and passed along what he had to Lawrence. So apparently Robert F. Williams is in Ernest Withers' snitch jacket. Oh, yeah, one of these dangerous Negroes. And now, does that sound like hero behavior for you? Yeah, retract. It was dangerous to be a black person, period. You're going to go down in Mississippi poking around and snooping around, and you want to take pictures and say you want to get involved with Emmett Till, we might treat you like Emmett Till. Facts. That does not eradicate, minimize you snooping on Dr. King, Robert F. Williams. Sounds like you're a key participant in provoking a riot. Now, white people are most to blame, but woo-wee, that ain't no type of hero conduct. And I will insert here, hey, not all of the black people who were, thousands of black people who were asked to snitch, not everybody said yes, even under the worst of conditions, with tremendous coercion. For example, El Haj Malik El Shabazz After his break with the NOI, he was an attempted parent, same pressure that Ernest Withers had. I got to provide for my children. He was in poor, desperate financial straits. Nation of Islam, they were suing to take his house back. The FBI approached him at that moment. Hey, why don't you come snitch for us? We'll hook you up. You got money problems? We can fix that easy. He declined. Not everybody is El Haj Malik El Shabazz. Absolutely. Just saying. I mean, hey, have some integrity. What are we here for? We make as much money as we can, see if the FBI will subsidize my career. Is that what we're here for? Are we here to be universal man, universal woman, replace white supremacy with justice? Most of the time, the answer is not number 2, RWSWJ. Most of the time, nah, we figure out anything other than that. Just pretend we're about that justice. Nah. We are not trying to put white people out of business at all. At all. Anywho, neutralizing workplace racism tomorrow. And Robert, and keep that in mind as we get to Friday. Robert and Mabel Williams, their dual memoirs. I'm so excited to be reading that book. Let's see. I think we can wrap there. Indeed, that is about what I expected from trifling race soldier Peter Lauterbach, who did say, oh yeah, for sure, racist suspect and all white people, including myself, we're fed racism. Whatever that. And the interesting, he said, fed racism from our mother's breast milk. Is it white women implicated? Racist woman? Delectable Negro, too. Invest if you think the cows is constructive. Listener-supported counter-racist radio. Hit the blog, racism-notes.blogspot.com. PayPal button in the top right corner. You'll see the links for Cash App, PayPal, and Venmo, all underneath the button for PayPal. Enormous gratitude for all of our investors who kept us on for 17 plus years. Hopefully we have been worthy of your time and energy. Hopefully we have been way more accurate and constructive than lame old Preston Lauterbach and many of the folks who write lame, dishonest books about racism, white supremacy, white people, what racism is, how it works. That's it. Sobriety would be best. What I just said for Nolan Wells. Do I have time? Can I go back, get my... Yes, I can. I go back. I shared the link. I think this was from WAPT in Jackson. They gave an update from one of Mr. Wells' friends, Preston Shepard, TRACESTIN Shepard, SHEPHERD. He told WAPT News in Jackson, Mississippi, well, we were just having fun all day. And then as the day went on, white people started to drink more and white people started getting more drunk. And then Nolan Wells died, suspiciously. And we don't know what happened, but it is a shame. We sure were drunk. That's why we don't remember. Sobriety would be best. Hey, if you're going to go to the pool, you do not want to be the only black person at the water with your white friends. Run away immediately. And hey, no kicking it with intoxicated white people. You are asking for suspicious, untimely death. It has been time. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately, not just pretend. Context of White Supremacy signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed. I'm a victim, brother. No problem. You're a victim. Yeah. I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning.
Shut up.
The man has programmed my condition. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.